This is a city of dreams, a place where ambition climbs high, mirroring those steel and glass giants reaching for the sky. We see you, the hustlers, the innovators, the ones who came with nothing but grit and built empires. But you know, beneath this dazzling facade, a different reality unfolds. This is also a city of stark contrasts, where unimaginable wealth spreads a chill across the city on those living on the fringes. This is a story about that divide, about the haves and the have-nots, and the thin line that separates them. We're going to dive into the heart of this city, where opulence and desperation collide, where penthouses overlook cardboard shelters, and a $5 latte can be someone's meal for a day. This is the reality for millions, hidden in plain sight. Two worlds existing within the same zip code. On one hand, we have excess, luxury, and abundance. We see you, the trendsetters, the tastemakers, the ones who define success by the size of their bank accounts and the brands they wear. But on the other side of this urban jungle, a different kind of struggle is unfolding. This is a story about those who call the streets their home, the invisible citizens forgotten and ignored. We'll explore the challenges they face, the systemic barriers they encounter, and the constant fight for basic human dignity. We'll examine the policies that perpetuate this divide, the societal structures that allow it to exist. We'll ask the uncomfortable questions: why does such disparity exist? How can a society so prosperous ignore the plight of its most vulnerable? These are not just statistics, they are people, they are stories. We'll meet individuals who have fallen on hard times, victims of circumstance, and those struggling with mental health or addiction. We'll hear their stories, understand their struggles, and confront the harsh realities they face every single day. This isn't about pity, it's about understanding. It's about seeing the human beings behind the labels, the individuals trapped in a system that often feels rigged against them. This is a call to action, a call to bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots, a call to build a city that works for everyone, not just the privileged few. The sun rises over the city that never sleeps. 6 o'clock in the morning. For some, the day begins with a symphony of opportunity. A gentle wake-up call from their AI assistant, a tailored workout with their personal trainer, a carefully curated breakfast designed to fuel their billion-dollar ambitions. But just blocks away, a different kind of morning unfolds. 6 o'clock in the morning. The cold concrete is a harsh reminder of reality for those who call it their bed. The sunrise brings not promise, but the uncertainty of where the next meal will come from, where they can safely rest their heads for a few stolen hours. As the day unfolds, these parallel worlds rarely intersect. One moves at a breakneck pace, fueled by ambition and the endless pursuit of more. The other is a struggle for survival, a constant negotiation with a city that often feels indifferent to their plight. This city wasn't always built on such stark inequality. But over time, the relentless march of progress has come at a cost. Gentrification sweeps through neighborhoods, pushing out long-time residents and replacing them with sleek high-rises and those who can afford the exorbitant rents. The very fabric of community is being torn apart. Mom-and-pop shops are replaced by luxury chains. Affordable housing becomes a distant memory, replaced by condos marketed as investment opportunities. The city's character, its soul, is slowly being erased in the name of profit. The numbers tell a clear story. The gap between the rich and the poor is widening at an alarming rate. The cost of living skyrockets while wages remain stagnant. For those already struggling, it's a recipe for disaster. In this city of gleaming facades, there are invisible walls everywhere. Walls built not of brick and mortar, but of indifference, prejudice, and fear. They separate the haves from the have-nots, the seen from the unseen. For those living on the streets, every day is a battle against invisibility. They are treated as problems to be solved, nuisances to be removed, rather than human beings deserving of dignity and respect. Public spaces are increasingly privatized. Pushing those without means further into the margins. Laws are enacted to criminalize homelessness, making it illegal to sleep, sit, or even stand in certain areas. Perhaps the most insidious wall of all is the wall of indifference, the human instinct to look away, to pretend we don't see the suffering around us. It's easier to avert our gaze, to convince ourselves that it's not our problem, but every act of kindness, no matter how small, can make a difference. A smile, a kind word, a moment of genuine human connection, these are the cracks in the wall of indifference. It's time to stop seeing homelessness as an unsolvable problem and start seeing the human beings behind the statistics. They are our neighbors, our fellow citizens, and they deserve our compassion and support. Night falls on the concrete jungle. For those with a roof over their heads, it's a time for rest, for family, for sanctuary. But for the city's homeless population, the safety and comfort of a home are a distant dream. The cold, hard reality of the streets becomes their only refuge. Finding a safe place to sleep is a nightly struggle. Shelters, often at capacity, offer little more than a temporary reprieve from the elements. And for many, the strict rules, lack of privacy, and potential for danger make them an unappealing option. The lack of affordable housing is a crisis that cuts deep. Soaring rents and stagnant wages make it nearly impossible for low-income individuals and families to find a place to live, and once someone falls into homelessness, escaping its grip becomes a monumental task. Living on the streets takes a devastating toll on both physical and mental health. Exposure to the elements, lack of access to hygiene facilities, and inadequate nutrition weaken the immune system and exacerbate existing health conditions. The healthcare system, often difficult to navigate even for those with stable housing, can feel like an insurmountable obstacle for the homeless. Lack of insurance, transportation barriers, and fear of judgment prevent many from seeking the care they desperately need. Mental health issues are often compounded by the trauma of homelessness. The constant stress, fear, and uncertainty take a heavy toll. And for those battling addiction, finding treatment and support can feel like an impossible dream. In a society obsessed with success and status, homelessness is often viewed as a personal failing, a mark of shame. Those living on the streets are often met with judgment, disdain, and even outright hostility. The stereotypes run deep. They're lazy, they're dangerous, they're choosing to live this way. These harmful narratives dehumanize individuals, stripping them of their dignity and making it even harder to break free from the cycle of homelessness. The reality is that homelessness can happen to anyone. A sudden job loss, a medical emergency, a family crisis. These are just a few of the life events that can push someone over the edge. Homelessness is not just an individual problem, it's a societal issue with far-reaching consequences. Children growing up in poverty and instability are, way more likely to experience homelessness themselves, which just keeps this vicious cycle going for generations. Breaking the chains of homelessness really takes a multi-pronged approach that tackles both the symptoms and the root causes. So, investing in affordable housing, expanding access to healthcare and mental health services, and providing opportunities for education and job training, these are honestly crucial steps. But beyond policy changes, what we really need is a shift in perspective. We have to move away from judgment and instead embrace compassion, understanding, and a willingness to help those in need. Mark, a successful investment banker, prides himself on his strategic mind, his ability to navigate the complexities of the financial world. His days are a whirlwind of high-stakes deals and power lunches, and his nights are spent in a luxurious penthouse overlooking the city he's conquered. John, meanwhile, faces a whole different kind of complexity, the daily struggle for survival on the streets. He meticulously rations his meager food supply, finds warmth in layers of donated clothing, and clings to the hope that tomorrow might bring a stroke of good fortune. Their paths cross every day, a fleeting moment in the urban tapestry. Mark, lost in his world of numbers and deadlines, barely notices John bundled in the doorway. John, an observer of the human parade, sees the indifference in the eyes of those who hurry past, their faces etched with the anxieties of their privileged lives. They are, honestly, worlds apart, separated by a chasm of circumstance and opportunity, yet they share the same city, breathe the same air, their lives intertwined in ways neither could ever fully comprehend. Sarah, once a rising star in the tech industry, now navigates the city streets with a shopping cart filled with her belongings. Her story is, a stark reminder that the fall from grace can be swift and unforgiving. Once she commanded boardrooms, her days a blur of product launches and venture capital meetings. She had it all, a thriving career, a loving family, a future brimming with possibility. But life, as it often does, had other plans. A series of unfortunate events, a failed startup, a devastating illness, the loss of her partner sent her world crashing down. Now she pushes aside her pride and swallows the bitter pill of judgment as she applies for minimum wage jobs, only to be met with skepticism and rejection. The skills that once made her a valuable asset in the corporate world seem almost irrelevant in her new reality. And now, as she sits on a park bench, gazing up at the skyscrapers that represent her former life, the city lights reflect in her eyes, a mixture of sadness, resilience, and a flicker of hope that, honestly, refuses to be extinguished. The tension between affluence and poverty is, just so palpable in neighborhoods where million-dollar condos cast shadows on homeless encampments. The rapid pace of gentrification displaces long-time residents, pushing them further into the margins. The lines are drawn, often along the fault lines of socioeconomic status. Fear and misunderstanding fuel the divide. Those with means view the homeless population as a threat to their way of life, a blight on the urban landscape. The very fabric of community unravels as empathy gives way to apathy. The city, once a melting pot of diverse experiences, becomes increasingly segregated, its residents living in parallel universes, rarely intersecting except in moments of conflict or fleeting charity. Amidst the struggle for survival, glimmers of humanity shine through. The homeless population is not a monolith, but a collection of individuals with unique stories, talents, and dreams. These moments of beauty, of creativity, of resilience challenge our preconceived notions and remind us that everyone has a story to tell, a light within them that hardship cannot extinguish. These glimpses into the lives of those experiencing homelessness reveal the richness and complexity that exist beyond the labels and stereotypes. They are artists, musicians, storytellers, survivors, their spirits unbroken even as they navigate a world that often seems determined to break them. Maria, a single mother who found herself homeless after fleeing an abusive relationship, embodies the strength and resilience of those fighting to protect their families amidst unimaginable hardship. Every day is a balancing act, finding food, keeping her children safe, and clinging to the hope of a brighter future. She shields her children from the harsh realities of their situation, creating a world of magic and imagination within the confines of their makeshift shelter. She teaches them the importance of kindness, of sharing, of finding joy in the smallest of things. Despite the constant challenges, Maria never gives up hope. She attends job training programs, volunteers at a local shelter, and seizes every opportunity to create a better life for her children. A powerful image of love, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her children, even in the face of adversity. John, hungry and tired, couldn't believe his eyes. A crisp $100 bill lay at his feet. He looked around, but the street was empty, the city quiet. Meanwhile, Mark searched his pockets, panic rising. He'd lost the money meant for his daughter's birthday. John stood at a crossroads, the bill heavy in his hands. He could buy food, maybe a night in a shelter, but something deeper tugged at him, a hunger for dignity and connection. When John saw Mark searching, there was a silent recognition, a shared moment of vulnerability and hope. The city noise faded as their eyes met. A banker, fluent in profit and loss, and a man whose currency was survival and hope. Mark glimpsed a world he'd only seen from his high-rise office, a world of uncertainty and vulnerability. John's raspy voice broke through. "You drop this, mister. It could be important." Mark, used to transactions, was caught off guard by this act of grace. In that moment, a wall crumbled and their worlds briefly connected. The question hung in the air, unexpected and loaded with meaning. Mark realized he wasn't just offering food, he was extending a hand of humanity. The barriers between them began to dissolve as they talked. John shared memories of a life before the streets. Over a chess game, a new kind of exchange unfolded, one of shared humanity. In that moment, their differences faded, replaced by genuine connection. As Mark walked back into the city, the familiar streets seemed different. The homeless individuals he'd once hurried past were no longer invisible. They were individuals, each with a story, a struggle, a spark of humanity that mirrored his own. John, watching Mark disappear into the crowd, felt a warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with the coffee. It was the warmth of human connection, a reminder that even in the depths of despair, kindness had the power to illuminate the darkest corners. The encounter, a seemingly insignificant blip in the vast tapestry of the city, created ripples that extended far beyond that single interaction. Mark, forever changed by John's quiet dignity, resolved to use his privilege to make a difference, to advocate for those whose voices were often silenced. In a city of millions, even the smallest act of kindness can have an immeasurable impact. We have the power to bridge the divide, one connection, one story, one act of compassion at a time. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the urban landscape, the city stands at a crossroads. The stark contrast between opulence and desperation, a tale woven into the very fabric of its being, can no longer be ignored. The time for complacency is over. The city faces a reckoning. We've journeyed through the heart of this urban jungle, witnessing both the dazzling heights of wealth and the crushing lows of poverty. We've seen how easily one can fall through the cracks, how quickly dreams can turn to dust in a system that often feels rigged against the most vulnerable. But we've also witnessed the resilience of the human spirit, the unwavering strength of those who navigate the streets with dignity and grace. We've seen the transformative power of connection, the way a single act of kindness can ripple outwards, chipping away at the walls of indifference that divide us. The challenges facing our city, the stark disparities that define its character, may seem insurmountable. But despair is not an option. We must choose empathy over apathy, action over indifference. The time for passive observation is over. The time for engagement is now. Each one of us has a role to play in bridging the divide. It starts with a shift in perspective, a willingness to see beyond the labels and stereotypes to recognize the shared humanity that binds us. It means challenging our own biases, confronting our discomfort with poverty and homelessness. We can volunteer our time at local shelters, donate to organizations working tirelessly to combat homelessness, and use our voices to advocate for policies that prioritize affordable housing, accessible healthcare, and meaningful support for those in need. Let us envision a city where every citizen has the opportunity to thrive, where housing is a right, not a privilege, where healthcare is accessible to all, and where mental health and addiction are treated with compassion and understanding. Building such a city requires a collective effort, a commitment from individuals, communities, and institutions to dismantle the systemic barriers that perpetuate inequality. It demands investment in affordable housing initiatives, job training programs, and social support services that empower individuals to break free from the cycle of homelessness. Let us create a city where differences are celebrated, where everyone feels a sense of belonging, and where no one is left behind. A city where the measure of progress is not the height of our skyscrapers, but the well-being of all its citizens. The stories we've shared, the challenges we've explored, are just a glimpse into a complex issue that demands our attention and action. Now, we turn to you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you had encounters with homelessness that challenged your perceptions? What actions can we take, individually and collectively, to create a more just and compassionate city? Remember, change begins with awareness, but it doesn't end there. Let's continue the conversation, inspire action, and work together to build a city and a world where everyone has a place to call home.